district,
right?
yeah.
They've all expired. That was part of it.
This will go up to connect.
Okay, so I already checked this all out. This will come up with these can be combined. I'll get rid of that.
Right.
That's what
How many feet, without, I'm not looking at it, but how many feet are actually then on Grange Hall?
It's a size 1 font. I can't see.
This side?
Oh yeah, I have a
101.
I didn't even know that. I had another 30 to go.
101 and a half feet.
Crystal, they wanted to see you prefer.
Wow, talk about needing a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mentioned that she was gone. I'm like, oh, I didn't. Didn't even know about it. It's probably on Facebook. It is.
So there's 100 feet there, plus the road makes it another, what's the road, 28 feet?
No, it had to be at least 30, like 30 or 40.
Yeah, but there's a number on the end of it, looks like it says 28. Here, Mark. Mark.
Yep.
On the north end of it, it says 28.
So you have to assume it probably be 28 though.
On the south end, though, it opens up a little wider.
Yeah, not much.
With 120 feet, is that enough to build anything?
Not commercial.
I think I was trying to figure out what their intent was. The only thing I can think of is that they wanted to be able to get signage on Grange Hall.
Genesis, you mean, or the people back here?
Whatever they did back here.
Oh,
so that
correct.
They had signage.
But what I'm saying is, going forward, would that parcel void of Genesis be good for anything?
Not now.
No, not really.
100 and some feet wide. So
Yeah.
I'm saying, is there anything that could be built on that?
No.
It's too narrow.
Right. There is a utility easement, which
But-
I got.
but
I got
maybe
Brenda
this guy-
Firestein getting that for me.
Maybe this guy over here at 101 or 001,
Right.
maybe he'd like some of it for the back of his.
That's Northwest Plaza.
Must be 2 of them.
George.
This line goes around.
Oh, I'm looking at that. Oh,
632.
we will call the meeting to order at 6:32. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clock on that back wall makes it a little confusing because it's not quite 6:30 yet when you're looking at that. Roll call, please.
George Cullis,
Here.
Mark Freeman,
Here.
Pat Feeney,
Here.
Steve Ruth,
Here.
Aaron Winchester.
Okay, I would make a motion to excuse Karen Winchester.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded by Treasurer Freeman to excuse Karen Winchester. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Before we get into consent agenda and the approval thereof, you all received a second agenda, which we will call an amended agenda. There was an item added, number 5. We received an offer to purchase on a parcel of land that the township owns on Friday, and Treasurer Freeman and I thought that this was something that could be handled tonight, so we added it to the agenda. At the same time, I would like to take item number 4, administrative policies and procedures, and table that, waiting a report from the attorney. So that would make number 5 on your agenda actually number 4.
Okay, well, that's on the agenda.
That's why I'm amending it before we approve it.
We can decide whether to table administrative policies and procedures when we get to it.
Yeah, because it's not part of the consent
It's
agenda.
not part of the consent agenda.
Okay. Well, then neither is the amended agenda. How do we address that?
Yeah, weren't you doing two separate motions, the consent agenda, and then you would do the
What-
agenda, or?
What do you mean,
Well, right now, the way that this is, you have consent agenda. Under consent agenda is agenda approval.
correct?
Right.
So I'm trying
Oh.
to amend I'm trying to make note that we have an amended
Are you
agenda.
saying that this amended agenda wasn't,
The original
Yes, it-
agenda had 4 items. It did not include the offer to purchase the land.
right? Are you
So-
saying this didn't get posted early enough? It's like an addition?
It wasn't posted because the other one had been sent for publication.
Okay,
The other one also had the wrong date, by the way.
That's correct. It had January 11th.
okay.
So if you want it done in 2 separate motions, I can do that, or I was just trying to amend it, and we could then, however you want it, however
Why
you're
don't we
more
vote on
comfortable.
the consent agenda first, and just
Right.
vote on
When we get to the
Well,
new business,
okay.
we just
Then we
table
have
it.
to bring number 1 down. We have to take number 1, the agenda approval, out of consent agenda if we're going to approve
Okay,
consent agenda.
right,
Agreed?
agree.
Well, you can approve the agenda with, amend the agenda.
And then
Right.
approve your consent agenda.
So-
It's up to you guys how you want to handle it.
I just approve it and then we'll
Let's
table
add-
number
just add
4.
offer to purchase parcel number so-and-so to the agenda.
Under consent agenda.
Correct.
Okay, so we add number 5,
Yes.
offer to purchase as an amended agenda.
Right, and then we vote on that.
Okay, we'll do it that way.
Okay.
And then, so a motion to approve consent agenda with the amended agenda.
Yes.
Is that support?
It's easy for you to say.
Okay,
Support.
so it's moved in that fashion. We are going to approve the consent agenda with the amended agenda in there. Because there's money involved, it requires a roll call.
So you want to say motion to approve consent agenda with the amended agenda? Okay,
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Which are
Okay.
guys amended.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
Pat Feeney,
Yes,
Mark Freeman,
Yes.
George Cullis.
Yes. Okay, then we go into public hearing. I need a motion for that. Chair would entertain a motion to open in public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Treasurer Freeman, support.
Support.
Support by Trustee Ruth. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Open public hearing.
We are now open in public hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Community Development Block Grant requirements. A public hearing will be held by the Holly Township Board at its regular meeting on January 17th. That's this evening, or shortly thereafter. The Holly Area School Board Room in Carl Richter Community Center to receive written and verbal comment regarding the reprogramming of federal CDBG funds as follows. From the pay year of 2016, emergency services $4,576. Clearance and demolition for the Village of Holly project $4,576. And that's not typed right. Does that make sense to you?
It makes a sense only from the standpoint if there's, you're taking the monies from 16 and you're moving them to 17, and so you're adding 16 and 17 monies together.
We just don't have the show of that other number.
It's not broke out. I'm
Yeah.
assuming, I'm not going to swear by that, but I believe that was
So that
what it is.
looks like it's $6,104
Right,
is for 17,
correct. then
and we're adding 4,576
from 16 that
from
wasn't-
16,
that wasn't dispersed
and we're moving that forward
to 17.
to 17.
Yes.
That would make more sense. Okay, anybody wish to speak at this time on public hearing? None appearing, then I will close public hearing with a motion.
Motion to close public hearing.
Support.
Again with Freeman and Ruth on the motions. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are now out of public hearing. We don't have any presentations at this time, so we will go into reports. For the supervisor, we had, if you remember at the last meeting, I passed out the letter from the veterans, from the state of Michigan regarding the veterans home. They had requested in that letter that any bids, if you will, or any letters of interest be submitted by January 3rd. Over the holidays, we worked on a presentation. We submitted one on January 3rd. It was about 20 pages long, and we got a phone call on January 4th asking us for a couple of more pieces of information. We supplied that to them, and at 4:10 on February 4th, they called back and said they'd like to come out and talk to us, and they'd like to meet with us and see the property that we're talking about. And I said that would be good. We could set up an appointment, and they said we'll be there tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So that's how quick that fell. So we met with them the next morning at the Township Hall, and they filled us in on what their project was. They have federal grant money to the tune of $1.2 million, and the state legislature authorized them to acquire land to build 2 veterans homes in the state of Michigan. They're looking for approximately a 20-acre parcel. These are both $60 million projects. That $1.2 million was a 65% grant with 35% matching funds on the state level, and they're in the process of looking at it. They come out, they saw what we had, and they're supposed. This is being fast-tracked. We're supposed to hear by the first week in February. I've had one contact with them since they were here. They appreciated all the information we gave them. There were 4 communities that were involved in that to start. One of those communities is no longer involved. There are 3, and it's really been kind of an interesting process. One of the things that I had asked at the time was, while they asked about all the resources that our community had for such an event, they never were able to say what the ideal parcel was that they were looking for. When I talked to Mr. North, which is the head of that department for the state, he said the reason we didn't put that is because we weren't sure we knew that answer. So this is something that's really been fast-tracked. They're trying to go through it. It's my understanding that they had already had a site they were working on in Detroit. They've been working on it for over 6 months, and whatever happened down there, the wheels fell off, and the legislature gave them 45 days to do something different. So as we get more information, I will pass it along, and it's difficult to see exactly how it's going to work because they're still trying to put all that together as they go forward. Also went down to Oakland County and last week, and the county rolled out a new human trafficking task force for Oakland County, and if you go to the website and look up on that, it's some serious business in Oakland County. They have the problem going all over. Genesee County's having it. The biggest concentration for Oakland County is in the Southfield, Madison Heights area, but they've had reports of it all through the county at different levels. So go to the website, take a look at what they're talking about. They said some of these people that are caught up in this, you could cross paths with them on any given day, and they said you probably would do well to see what the signs are and know what to do when these people need help. They had a gal down there that had been involved in it and got out of it and got rescued, so to speak, and some of the stories you hear are just downright horrible. So Oakland County does have a task force. You can go to the county website and see some of that information. Mark, treasurer's report?
I was going to report on the piece of property that the township received from the county that failed to sell at the land sale, but seeing how that turned out to be offer to purchase the parcel. Rather than being redundant, I will wait until we discuss that. That's number 5 under new business.
Okay. The clerk is absent this evening. Let's see, I think if I remember correctly, last month I went to Mr. Ruth, so this month I'll go to Mr. Fiend.
Okay, let's see. Well, I guess I want to thank everybody that was part of the presentation for the Brethren's retirement home plan. It was, kind of short notice and the way they brought that about. And I just kind of want to clarify, because I had a couple people make the suggestion to me that I wasn't up to date on all the information on that. Well, that got me to thinking. I understand, because of the size of our board, that it's hard to disseminate a lot of information to individuals because of the Open Meetings Act, and I think you were prudent on that. I have no problems with that. I totally understand that. But as someone who has in the past criticized our use of special meetings, I think this might have been one of those times where a special meeting might have been appropriate, just to let us know what was said, and so we're all on the same page. Because, I had no idea. Basically, I found out by someone just happening, getting a cup of coffee, told me what was going on, and it, immediately came to mind that, okay, I understand it came together pretty quickly, and I get that. But I do believe that we probably should have had a session, because the way I'm looking at it is, if we're in the running for it, we should make sure there's no obstacles, no legal issues with the property that was shown to them. And just to have a consensus, so you don't have to, so if they came back and said, you're the winner, you don't even have to. You say, well, we got all our ducks lined up together. And, but other than that, I think it was very well done, and a lot of enthusiasm, which I think only goes to show when people see something in Holly that they get behind it. And I'm very proud to say that it sounds like we gave a good presentation and a good show of ourselves there. One other concern I did have was on the someone brought to my attention, and that was on the utility poles that are going up over here. Is there any idea when and how many more are going to be going up? Did they pass along anything to us on that one?
Nothing.
Nothing. So it's basically the
It's
same old
their-
consumers
it's their
on that.
easement,
That was,
and it's
okay.
been-
Public utility.
You're right. Well, the question was arose because someone said one of the construction crews said that they were going farther north than the railroad tracks. Now, my understanding, it was just to the railroad
I
tracks.
mean, farther south.
Or south, I'm sorry, yes,
Okay.
south. But as far as I understood, it was just to the railroad tracks, was it not? Was it?
First phase.
First phase, okay. That's okay. So they probably were
My
correct on that.
understanding is it runs all the way down almost to South Holly Road, and it helps to feed Rose Township,
Okay.
where they've had difficulties when the power goes out.
So this is like the first phase. That's okay, because
That was my-
it wouldn't make any sense for him to stop there. But I said when we heard about it, that's all I heard. We were going. That's as far as it was going. But yeah, it makes sense that it would go further down.
Right.
The only communication I've had is they called to let me know when they tore everything out. They called to let me know that when they were all done, they would be cleaning things up and putting them back to.
And how did that go? I mean,
Well, they're not all done yet.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, there were several people that indicated that they were supposed to be doing stuff as they went along, or that was not the promise? It was a promise of just be cleaned up at the end, right?
I don't know I don't know who they promised, if they did promise.
Okay.
I just know that we got a lot of calls when they first started tearing
Right,
stuff out.
right.
And I called their office, and the guy said, yep, he says, we gotta go through that whole area, and but when we're all done, we'll
When
clean
you're all
everything
done.
up, and we'll put it. Sue Julian was probably the one that was upset the most over what happened down in
Right.
that area. And,
Yeah, the sign, I saw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
and they did come and put some silt screens in to keep it from getting into the river. But other than that, there's been very little communication on it.
That's pretty much what I've expressed to people that have asked me about it, so. All right.
Okay.
Other than that, nothing else.
And you pretty much covered it in your comments. This thing moved so fast. And with them calling at 4 in the afternoon and wanting to meet at 8 the next morning, we couldn't even bring the board together. There wasn't time to make a public announcement. So we just went forward to hear what they had to say, and we took notes. And
Well, my thought was afterwards, I understand, you know, like I said, no criticism about how you had to put it together. But afterwards, that way, like I said, the way I look at it is the fact that if they came back and we had a special meeting, we talked things through, then there would be like, okay, we're good to go.
Mhm.
You know, instead of saying, well, you know, now we got to go back and talk to somebody about it. You
Well,
know, it's-
the letter, part of the problem with that is, first of all, the letter that you were all given showed you what information they were asking. And that's pretty much what we did. They wanted to know how close we were to a hospital. They wanted to know how many hotels were in the area. They wanted to know what services were available. So it was pretty much an inventory of what we have in the Holly area that we put together. We had help from the Holly Veterans
Right.
Center here as far as putting together some numbers and some statistics. And we did some research on our own and we put it together. When they came out, unfortunately, they really don't know how the next step is going to happen and where it's going. The one gentleman that led the meeting, and 6 people came from the state, he said, we are on a ridiculously fast track to make this happen. And he said, we're figuring it out as we go. He gave us some facts and figures. The home's going to have there's going to be 128 units. They'll all have a bedroom, a living room, and a kitchen dining facility together. They're going to be in cluster areas. If you picture a wheel with a hub in the middle, they want to have their recreation or library or cafeteria stuff in the middle so the veterans can go to that. This is going to be kind of independent, assisted living type things where veterans can come and live out their life. And they want it in a nice setting. They want it on flat ground because of the wheelchairs and walkers. And as I said, they couldn't even tell us what an ideal parcel was because they hadn't decided.
Was any private property shown to them in the township?
Nope, the only thing we showed them at this time were the 2 parcels that we own. I did tell them with more time, if they would give us a better idea of what they're looking for, that we have a lot of undeveloped land, and there are other parcels that could be possibly made available. Let me know what you want, and I'll go out there and see what else we've got. And they said thank you, and they know that we have that option, and we've not heard from them, other than to be told that from 4 they went down to 3, and that they appreciated immensely the fact that we pretty much rolled out the red carpet for them. Other than that, it's
We'll see.
it's up in the air. We're just waiting to hear. We'll go from there. Trustee Ruth?
Nothing for me tonight.
Nothing for you tonight. Okay. We will go into public comment. Members of the public can address the board on agenda items only, once recognized by the supervisor. Comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. The board may extend this time by a majority vote. Prior to addressing the board, members of the public shall state their name and address for the record. A second public comment is available after the new business for all other comments. Thank you for your cooperation. Anybody wish to speak on the first public comment? Okay, none appearing. We'll skip old business. There is nothing. We'll go into new business. And new business is the CDBG resolution. (2018-01). It is for the appointment of these monies that we talked about in the public hearing, and that is moving the $4,576 from 2016 for emergency services and for clearance and demolition, moving that money forward to 2017, which would make 2017's monies a total of $10,680 by adding that to that. Chair would entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-01 CDBG request for reprogramming of funds.
Support.
Support.
Trustee Ruth makes the motion. Freeman with support. Roll call, please.
Mark Freeman,
Yes.
George Cullis,
Yes.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
Pat Feeney.
No.
Motion carries 3-1. Next on the new business is an appointment of cooperative invasive species areas representatives. In order for us to qualify for SISMA, there has to be a representative and there has to be an alternative within their paperwork. Amy and I have been going to those meetings. This is something we joined last year. SISMA is the organization that was set up through Oakland County to help with the invasive species, and they have grant money available. We didn't qualify it last year because we weren't a member and we hadn't gone to their meetings. Now, with the money we appropriated last year, we did some treatment and we did the mapping which was necessary to qualify. So we have the mapping in order. Now we need a representative and an alternative in order to move forward as we apply for the grants that will be available in 2018. Because Amy and I have been going to the meetings, my recommendation would be, and actually Amy's made more of those meetings. They keep scheduling their meeting at the same time they schedule a meeting at the county. I think they're half hour apart.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been going to one and I've been going to the other. My recommendation would be to appoint Amy as the representative for SISMA with myself as the alternative. Is there any comment?
About how much time would that take per month or whatever?
They meet,
2 hours,
is it once a month?
once a month.
Yeah, once a month.
And then what would be the specific duties or whatever that we would be required to do?
The representative is allowed to vote in as the representative
Oh.
for the township. So it would be voting on ways to educate the public and ways to approach the road commission for certain grants that are available to them. Right now they're going for $45,000 in grant money from the road commission to address the public right-of-ways for Phragmites, Japanese knotwood, and various invasive species. And basically right now that's kind of what they've talked about the last 3 to 4 months, are those 3 or 4 things.
Okay. And are there any, do the citizens get any help out of this? I mean, removal of brush or trees or?
Not for personal
Okay.
property, no.
Okay.
It would only be to the public right-of-way.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
it would be our duty, and as part of education of the public, to let the homeowners know and the parcel owners know how to address those invasive species within their own property.
Okay.
Now, just so you know, we are working with the planner through the planning commission on to make sure our ordinances are clear on obnoxious weeds, I think is the is the character there, because as we move forward and as we treat these, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to treat the road right away when they're growing
Right next to it.
right next to it on the private property. And as Glenn Mitchell will tell you, it's been a problem through his property. So as we move forward on this, our hope is that first of all, our ordinance will be in position so that it requires homeowners to treat this as well. And with that in place, as we go forward on this, we're going to try to put things in order so that if we're hiring a company to do treatment, it can be expanded to the private property, and an agreement with the property owners can be worked out so that it's treated all at one time. For those of you that aren't familiar with invasive species and the particular ones we're talking about, we have several infestations of Phragmites throughout the township. You'll notice them on North Holly Road. They grow where the cattails are,
Yep,
but these are the ones that grow 12 feet tall, and as the summer goes on, they start to come out in the road. If you go to the corner of Laring and Fagan, it's so bad that you can hardly see around the corner. Another concern that we have with the Phragmites, and this goes to private property more than it does road or right away. If you go out to Kurtz Road, that's where the main lines come through that serve Holly, the big ones where they have the towers and the lines. There's probably 10 acres
I
At
would
least.
say, yes.
where they have come in from both sides. There's some cattails down through the middle, but these things expand like 30 feet a year. And as those cover, for those of you that may or may not remember, back in, it's probably been 8 years now, there was a huge fire down around Great Lakes Crossing that actually caused I-75 to be closed
I do remember that.
for the day when they fought that? Well, it was labeled by the news at that time a grass fire, but it was actually fueled by the Phragmites. And if you go online and go to YouTube and look up Phragmiting fires, they're quite scary. They go 60, 80 feet. They burn at an incredible temperature. If you go up and you cut one of these Phragmites down, they're like bamboo. They get about this big around. When you cut them off, the inside is hollow so that the oxygen flies right through them. And those fires can be so intense, they would take those main cable lines out, and Holly'd be out of power for however long it takes them to bring it back. But it's not just a simple wire down. So it is something that we need to look at. It's something the county's aware of. That's why they started the initiative, and we're trying to get on track with that.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Then I will make the motion to appoint Amy Folks as our representative and myself as the alternative. Is there a second? None appearing, the motion fails. Would anyone else like to address this issue? Okay.
I guess I just follow up with a question that, so if we don't participate, does that mean we aren't available for
Then we won't be eligible for the funding.
for the roadside funding?
Yep.
I would just suggest we put it back on the agenda for next meeting when Karen's here.
Okay. We can do that. Number 3 is youth government. Susan Papple's here this evening from the Holly Area Youth Coalition, and they have a program that they've been going. How many years has your youth dialogue been going on?
Year 10.
Year 10? I know Treasurer Freeman's been involved in that in the past. I've been involved in the past. This is a, would you care to give us a minute and explain how your youth dialogue works and what
Sure.
comes out of that? If you could approach the podium, please.
And just so there's not confusion, the Holly Area Community Coalition has been in existence since 1999. So, but the Youth Dialogue Day started with our Drug-Free Communities grant 10 years ago. And what we do is we enlist some help from community leaders, and we meet with those community leaders. We get about 10 to 15 community leaders and about 60 students, and we meet kind of in roundtable discussion. And the kids, we have topic discussions, and it's anything from information about your community, safety in school, safety in your community. We've had ones that are strictly focused on athletes. Different ones have been different topics. But then we ask the kids their opinions, their viewpoints, their suggestions for different problems that they see. So basically getting their point of view as to what can be done in our community. That's what initiated, if you're familiar with our Teen Block Party. Many of the kids over several years said that there was not a connection. Well, first of all, they didn't know about a lot of the businesses downtown. And then the kids who did go to the businesses downtown didn't feel welcomed. So we went to the businesses and said, what can we do to make there a better connection between kids and our community businesses? And that's where we had this Teen Block Party, where we close off the row. We bring down lots of kids. The businesses have offered either some items on sale. They've had games for the kids. They'll come out and do something in front of their store, and just participate and get the kids welcome, know that they're welcome in these businesses. And at the same time, they quite often bring a lot of parents, so parents are becoming more familiar with our community as well. So that's just one thing that has been a great success, and we've done that now like 4 years or 5 years. So.
All right. Well, one of the things that came out of the youth dialogue was the fact that, and just so you know how this operates, when we go in, we sit at one table, and the kids come in and they move around from table to table while we go through a series of questions. And the one series of questions was, what did you know about local government? What would you like to do about government? And the resounding answers that we got was they had no idea what local government was about. They had no idea how it worked, why do we have it, what's the difference between the township and the village, and simple things like, well, you know, that's who pays for the lights to be on in town, and they really didn't know. But the other part of that was, how can we get involved? How do we find out more? Some of them have been to a meeting, and let's be honest, some of our meetings can be pretty boring and not get involved. So the thought was, and I'd had a conversation with the past village president, Ryan Bladzik, about creating a youth government. After the election, I had a conversation with the current president, Jim Perkins, and we both, that was an idea he had, is creating some kind of a youth government where they could be involved. They might come and sit at the table with us when we have our meetings. It might be structured in such a fashion that they could have opinions, they could talk about things. Obviously, they wouldn't have voting rights, but they would be involved, they would be a little closer, they could mentor with somebody. There might be some different days and ways we could do this. And I put it on the agenda tonight. I wanted to bring it up to the board to see what your thoughts were. If you like the idea, if this was worth going forward, then we would get a little more involved between the township and the village, the two governments involved, and see what a program like that might roll out. And the reason I brought it to the board was I thought something like that, rather than spend a lot of time working on it, if the rest of the board doesn't like the idea, then there might not be any point in going forward. Thank you.
I was just going to say also that our experience has been at these dialogue days is that the kids have like great ideas, and you know, some of them can be far-fetched or like, you know, like not really attainable, but they are very creative, and they just have a way of thinking about community and school and safety, or maybe it's lights at the park. You know, they just have a way of if maybe they did sit in on a meeting, you might be able to ask their opinion on certain items that you're discussing, and they just have a way of, you know, being able to share their ideas and come up with you know, some creative things that you may not have thought of.
One of the things that Jim Perkins and I said when we had that conversation was, I said, you do realize by opening this door, one of us is going to end up in a meeting one night where one of these kids comes up with the solution to a problem that the rest of us hadn't come up with yet. and I said, so we need to be aware that day will come. But I said, for myself, that'll be a moment of pride to see that one of the kids can step up and get involved like that. So, but that's why I brought it to the board. I wanted to see what everybody thought.
Thank you.
And if anybody else on the board wanted to be involved in working on putting something like that together.
When I was involved with it, the thing that struck me the most was that the participation. They were very enthusiastic about participating. They weren't reluctant. You know, they spoke their minds.
Yeah. No, and I was, as you say, I was kind of surprised by how quick they were to come up with things and ask questions and then ask why. So, you know, there's an enthusiasm, and I think that's something we should look at, not only tapping, but in a way that we can mentor it. Mr. Feeney?
Well, sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, I like the idea. We're not voting. Are we voting on anything tonight to do anything? I'd just like to see more how the structure would be.
No, we're not voting on anything other than I just wanted to get a flavor, because I thought if I sat down and you guys all kind of went, I don't know, this isn't a good idea, then there's not much point in going forward.
No, it's a great idea.
If one of you is interested in being a part of that committee, if you will, that puts this together and looks at it, then I was willing to write down volunteers at that time. Okay. So this was just more or less kind of scoping out the thoughts of the board. Anyone else have anything else? All right, and that takes care of number 3. Number 4 is administrative policies and procedures, and I want to table that till the next meeting while we wait for the report to come back from the attorney.
I spoke to the legal counsel today, and she assured me that she could have a review and recommendations available by our next board meeting and that she would attend to present it.
Correct.
The current policies and procedures were passed in 2002, and there have been some legal changes. We've also had some issues inside the office concerning policies and procedures, so I would make a motion that we give it, how's the way I want to say this?
Table or postpone?
No, that to
The legal.
have our legal counsel review our policies and procedures and make a recommendation.
Support. I was trying to think there's really no money involved, although we're going to have to pay the lawyer.
They're on retainer.
They're on retainer, so, okay.
That budget's been approved.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded that we have the attorneys review the administrative policies and procedures, and they will be at our February meeting with a report. Support, motion by Freeman, support by Cullis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And we're good. Now we'll move to number 5, which is offer to purchase parcel number 0128303002. Treasurer Freeman.
Just as a quick overview, every year, properties that are 3 years delinquent in their taxes, the properties are forfeited to the county. And then in August, the county has a land sale where those properties are sold for all the taxes that are due. Sometimes they actually go through a bidding process. And then again, late in October, any properties that didn't sell during the land sale are offered again. And any properties left after that sale, the county has to first offer them to the state of Michigan. If the state of Michigan doesn't want them, then they offer them to the local. In this particular case, if it's a property in Holly Township, the county would offer it to Holly Township. Holly Township has to inform the county if we don't want the property. If we do not inform them of that, they will automatically go ahead and convey the deed to us. Okay, so, and this has happened in the past. There was one property this year, and that property has just recently been deeded to Holly Township, and that's on the plat map. I've designated it with the yellow highlighter. It's a long, narrow strip of property. It's difficult to develop, but it is on has frontage on Grange Hall Road, and it is zone commercial. What happened quite quickly was that Genesis Credit Union, which owns the corner of Grange Hall and Fish Lake Road, which shares a property line with this parcel that we just received, approached me and wanted to purchase that piece of property. And when I met with them, I basically encouraged them to combine these two pieces, because as you can see, there supposedly was going to be a drive through there, which had to do with the site plan for the Silverman project behind it. That site plan expired. Then there was, Silverman submitted an overlay. The overlay has expired. So that easement drive, it's not actually an easement, but it was a drive between the two properties. That does not have to be there, so that could all become one parcel. When I met with them, I told them that they wanted to know what the process was. And so I explained to him the cheapest, or not the cheapest, but the quickest way to expedite the process was to just make an offer and submit it to the township. That offer then would be put on the agenda and come before the board. The long process, the normal process would be that we would receive the property, the deed, which we have, and then I would put it on the agenda, and the board would discuss what they want to do with the property. If the board decided they wanted to sell the property, then we would have to have the property assessed, and then we would have to have it listed with our real estate agent, and then the real estate agent, upon the sale of the property, would receive their commission, and so that's the long process. So they did, in fact, make an offer, and that's what you're looking at.
Mark, when you were talking about the process of how we ended up with it, anywhere down that line, could Genesis have gone to the county and said?
Yes, they could have.
So they could have done it.
They're probably shooting themselves, yes.
Right. Okay.
They could have bought it at the tax sale.
Right. So in other words, this is like, wow, here it is.
Right, because they had been unable to sell the property.
Right.
They finally received an offer from an interested party, but only if those two parcels could be
Right.
combined. Then they wanted it.
When I saw the for sale sign, I had spoken to Mark about it, and I said, and then he explained to me that there was another parcel there, because I never even realized that until they put their for sale sign up, and I thought it was for the whole property there. So basically, they're looking to package something to sell it off and not to develop themselves.
And they have a
So-
prospective buyer.
Right. And we don't, and not that we have the right to, but we have no idea who that prospective buyer is. Right?
That's correct.
You know.
I think just.
But that's irrelevant, really, because
But
they
that's
have to
true, we
meet
still
our
have-
zoning.
Right.
They
yeah.
can't. They only can do what the zoning will allow them to
Right.
do.
Well, I suppose, you know, if they might, I was just thinking their case might be a little stronger if they said, hey, we have a ready to put in, building or something, if you can somehow work with us to get this property, but they haven't said that, so for all we know, someone's just speculating and buying a piece of property and wants a bigger and nicer hunk of property. Yeah.
I think it's important to mention on the record, because many of you can't see it. In fact, I've got my magnifying glass out. But the current property that's owned by Genesis has 159 feet on Grange Hall Road. This parcel has 101 feet, along with the road, which is about 28 feet wide. So it would take their parcel from 159 and put it at about 260. It makes it a much more desirable parcel. And we're talking a piece of land from the Genesis standpoint, if I'm reading this thing right, it's about 305 feet long on Fish Lake Road. But the other side of this property goes back about, the one that we now own goes back about 645 feet. And it is adjacent to the other property on the other side of Grange Hall Road. So it makes their property much more desirable.
Yes. Well, and from the township's perspective, if you're traveling on Grange Hall Road and you're coming west to east, as you approach that intersection, that is the gateway, so to speak, of Holly Township's commercial district.
Right.
So that corner is the optimum corner, and so from the township's position, we would like that to be a very nice parcel with a nice structure on it, so that it makes a good impression as you enter our commercial district. And long range, I really couldn't put any type of timetable on it. We've had discussions with it with the village before, but I would strongly suggest that sometime in the future that will be a water sewer district at the very least. That because it's all commercial, it's going to be, even from just an environmental standpoint, a good idea to get all those commercial parcels on municipal water and sewer. It's one thing to have a residential on a well and septic, but to have this many commercial businesses on well and septics, it's not exactly the optimum thing that you want.
Well, I think there's two things to consider. First of all, the offer from Genesis is to acquire the property for $1.
Mhm.
And that doesn't particularly excite me in any way. My second thought is that perhaps we should let these other property owners that are adjacent to that parcel,
Exactly.
the property to the east, along with the 2 parcels of land that are up Fish Lake Road that touch the back of it. You could draw a line from the southeast corner of 002 straight over toward 010, and those 2 lots on Fish Lake would become deeper, and it would still allow the parcel where Genesis is to become a larger square. I don't know what they would ever do with that little
Right.
shot up the back
It'd be
there.
useless for them.
So,
yeah.
so it
No,
might.
I would say that it's more likely that they would try to acquire at least 002 and possibly both 002 and 001 and make that all one big parcel.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But
there's
see,
quite a
we-
few
yeah.
possibilities
We
here.
can't read the tea leaves on
Right.
that.
Right. No, but in the same respect, it doesn't excite me to sell it for $1 at this
Give it away.
point.
But how do
I think
how
there's
do-
too many options here.
How do we put value on it without it costing us an arm and a leg trying to find out? Because I can't imagine the value's got to be really
Well-
great. So
Well, we're in the same situation we were when we received an offer on the Holly Township Hall. Here's the offer, it's on the agenda, you vote yes or no. If you vote no, you tell them we refused your offer, and then they decide how they want
They
to
wanna
proceed
come
from
back.
there. I've been involved in a lot of real estate transactions, and I really can't see showing our cards.
right.
Right. And as I said, I think there's some other options that could be available there, certainly for more than, I think if we made the mistake of selling that to them for $1, we might have some other property owners connected to that a little upset if I found out I could have added another 100 feet to my side
Well-
for $1. So I think I'll make a motion that we turn down the offer from Genesis to purchase the land at $1.
Just one more question. I guess my question on was that what you just said. Suppose they did come back with an offer. How do we determine? Do we have to go?
You have to get assessed.
In your experience, would there be any?
Then we
mean-
go to the long process.
Let them go to long. Okay, that's
Well, and even
That's what I would do,
mm,
unless the board directs me to do otherwise.
yeah, we can do a market analysis on it, or we can pay to have an actual appraisal done. And it, like I said,
Wow.
at some point in time, we inform the other property owners, because there's a guy back here that owns 014 currently, and that would give him access to Grange Hall
Right.
Road besides the Fish Lake. So you never know who's going to be interested in it and at what point. There's a motion on the floor right now to
support.
reject, and there's support. So it's been moved and seconded that we turn down the offer to sell the property for $1. Any more discussion? None appearing. Roll call, please.
Pat Feeney,
No. Or
Steve,
pardon me. Turn it down. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes means no.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Steve Ruth,
Yes.
Mark Freeman,
Yes.
George Cullis.
Yes. Motion carries.
How did they find out about it so quickly?
I'm curious they hadn't come before. If you think about it, you know,
They called me and wanted to know who owned it.
Ah.
I said, well, as a matter of fact, we do now.
You're just a little late.
Yeah. A day late and $1 short.
Is there any desire to take any more action on that parcel before I go to our last public comment?
I just think we ought to be prepared for the
Right.
next offer and consider getting a commercial assessment, and that assessment would have to include them telling us the idea, when you combine it with these lots, then what does it make it? I mean, it's,
Yeah, that's true. That's probably what it's
the
gonna
little
have to
the
be.
little
Well,
sliver isn't worth
Yeah.
much, but
Can that be
They
done?
they may come back and make another offer.
Right.
I mean, we're not in any hurry.
Right. Oh, yeah,
But
that's
at the
true.
same time, it's, again, this parcel has now come off the tax rolls.
Right.
And the reason we got it is because a guy didn't pay, whoever the previous owner was, didn't pay the taxes for 3 years.
Mm.
So immediately, and then no one bought it at the land sale.
Right.
So it's a problem child.
Mm.
You know, all the evidence is it's a problem child and it needs to be resolved. They may may have been, this probably
We
was a
could-
fishing expedition.
Something like Dawson's.
Well, yeah, we'll
you
just
know,
throw $1, and that's, you know,
Right.
that's what they paid for it, and they might be happy to get it back on the rolls. If you read their letter,
That's what
obviously
it was.
that's what
Right.
that was their
Right.
strategy.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
I don't think we need a
No.
further motion.
I'd say we wait till they come back with something.
Because
and-
generally, we will put township properties on the agenda sometime over the next 2 or 3 months, and we'll review all of the properties that the township owns. We usually do that annually, just to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as the properties that the township owns. We're not really in any hurry, so I would just wait to see what happens, and it's going to end up back on the agenda anyways, probably in a couple months, with all township properties.
Any other comments? None appearing, I will move to public comment. Again, all items, I'm sorry, public comment. Members of the public can address the board on agenda item, or on any items now. Once recognized by the supervisor, comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and the board may extend this time by a majority vote. Prior to addressing the board, members of the public shall state their name, address for the record, and anyone interested in public comment. Mr. Engelberg.
Tony Engelberg, 115 Cogshell. I'd actually would like to see you guys do get some kind of an appraisal done on that property. I'm very glad you didn't rush to sell the thing for $1. I think, I'll start the bidding at $100 and let's go from there. It seems to me, it reminds me years ago I bought a small piece of property in the middle of nowhere in North Dakota, and it was a 3 a.m. $300 purchase, and the block was completely undeveloped, and somebody came in and started buying up those parcels, and I was the last holdout, and I held out and I held out and I held out, and my $300 property turned into almost $4,000. So it sounds to me, based on what you guys are describing, there could be enough potential interest around that area that I think it would behoove you guys to go ahead and spend a few $100s that it would cost to get the appraisal done. And that way, whether you end up deciding to look at somebody's offer or not, at some point you guys have got to figure out what it's worth. So in the building season, we're in the middle of winter right now, but the building season is going to ramp up in a few months. So it would seem to me, having that information, when either a valid offer comes in or you guys decide to put it up for RFP, eventually you're going to have that information anyway. So that's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak for public comment? None appearing, then we will adjourn at 7:27.
My mother and her aunt used to buy abstract pieces of property and turn around and sell them.
What does that mean, abstract?
Just odd